still your host, Venice, and we are now on our second part of the conversations with the filmmakers of this year's Bakunawa Young Cinema 7th edition. So tonight we will have a chance to have conversations with a director from Malaysia, the director of the film See You Next Century, also one of the opening films for this evening. So without further ado, we would like again to call the co-festival director of Bakunawa Young Cinema 7th edition, Direct Elbert Banyares, to formally introduce our guest for tonight's talk. Hi, Direct.
Thank you, Venice. Venice is also an actress. No, not everybody knows she's a theater actress, and she acts also for film. And soon, I hope you will act for me.
Hopefully. Thank you, Direct.
Thank you, Venice. That's so
Yeah,
sweet
thank you,
of you
Direct.
and to volunteer. We have a very special guest, and as my spiritual advisor, Philip Chea, would say, he's one of Malaysia's best, and I have to agree. I already know James for quite some time, but this is the first time we're meeting face to face. So let me introduce to you our guest. Our guest for tonight, the director of See You Next Century, which is an homage to Chris Marquez' La Jetée in 1962. Is a sci-fi time-traveling short involving a woman novelist being visited by a scientist from the future. James is one of Malaysia's versatile filmmakers and somebody who's actually pioneering. He was one of those who started digital filmmaking in the Southeast Asian region. And James is a trained graphic designer. He started his acting and directing career in the theater scene, working for various stage productions, and eventually joined the director mentorship program with Joe Hasham, the Actor Studio Malaysia, and the late Christian Jit, Five Arts Theater. He's also one of the pioneers, as I've mentioned, of the digital video filmmaking in the Southeast Asian region. And on top of directing, he has shot, produced, and acted in short and feature films. Yes, a lot actually, winning awards in film festivals in Thailand, Hong Kong, Singapore, and the Philippines, and many others. Please welcome, finally, James Lee. How are you, James?
I'm good. Thanks a lot for having me here.
Thank you. We have to thank our spiritual director for all the guidance. So, hello, Philip, and I hope he's watching. Let me start first. Tell us about your background as a filmmaker. Of course, when you started, when did you got interested in filmmaking?
I think from like most people very young age, I think in the early 90s, uh, I think that time the industry was really small in Malaysia. It's almost like something that you can't imagine you can get into it back in those days when things like on 35 right? And we had no film school in Malaysia back in those days. That's why I was a graphic designer. But anyway, my dream was to become a comic artist, right? But
Same
somehow,
here. I also wanted to be. I call that comic books.
yeah, okay. So what happened was like during graphic design, we learned storyboarding, where it was utilized a lot by TV commercials back then. So storyboard artist was big in demand, and I noticed it's very similar to comic because of the paneling.
Yes.
That was my first contact to filmmaking, and I thought like, hey, I could do those too. To draw for directors, and then you just shoot it without knowing that it's very complex and complicated. It's two different things between drawing and
Yes,
shooting a film.
yes, true.
And
Or
later,
both. This is more difficult if you do both. Like
yeah, correct. But I think people who knows how to draw is a bit easier. We have a bit of background. We can kind of visualize, imagine the shot, and kind of draw out the layout because of the comic. Then later on, I discovered that in Hollywood back in those days, they use a lot of storyboards. Even Steven Spielberg and all their movies. And back in those days, I just kind of like get books on the production, and I see, wow, they have really nice storyboards. Sometimes it's even colored.
Mhm.
But my
Yeah, some
real,
of the storyboards are really painted.
oh yeah,
It's like all of them are frameable. I can't believe that. They have
Yeah.
time.
correct.
They have no
yeah.
love life.
Yeah. But I guess the whole craft has changed now.
Yeah.
There's more
True.
art involved last time. Now it's more
Yes.
like it's just for the process. And then I thought like this might be the closest I could get into the film industry. But for what I know in Malaysia, we don't use that much storyboards except for TV commercials, which they can afford that. And how I got into it was in mid 90s when we have surge in TV dramas, TV productions. So back then also, our TV productions is really small. It's very few, mainly in Malay language, and there's a few TV stations, not a lot. But in mid 90s, there's a company that kind of like wants to kind of like to produce like episode series dramas. Those are soap operas.
Yeah.
Yes, in Chinese language and Malay language, and they got a lot of people from Hong Kong. Scriptwriters, producers, some directors, they're stuntmen and actors. They hired a lot of them into Malaysia during that period, and there was this surge of like an industry of TV dramas in Malaysia and telemovies. So that was my chance of going into like learning actual like how films are being made. You know, what's a video camera, and they are using beta cam back in those days. You know, beta cam is like huge. At that time, I think
Some students don't know Betacam anymore.
yeah,
Plus, also it's a huge
it's huge.
video system.
Yeah.
The cameras are really huge. It's actually you're like working out.
Yes. and the quality is kind of like really low by today's standard.
Yeah.
It's SD format, right?
SD
It's not
yes.
HD. So that's how I actually got into learning about the filmmaking. So I don't have any formal training in the whole thing, but learn on the spot. But the thing was, I was lucky. I got attached to a couple of like, Hong Kong directors. One of them are really good, so I learned a lot of them by being an AD for them. Yeah.
Wow. But I wanted to know. I'm curious. How is the pay well
Right.
in Malaysia? Sorry for putting you on the spot.
No worries. I tell that to my student all the time. The strangest thing is like back in those days they pay very well.
Yeah.
Today, the pay is kind of stagnant and it's kind of reduced. I think it's got to do with the whole economy. I think with Malaysia as a country, yes, we are getting paid lesser than 25 years ago, which is quite scary.
Really?
Yeah. So budget is cut, and with inflation, it doesn't make sense. So yeah, it's kind of like it just changed a very drastic change.
Interesting. So, and now it got me really curious. When you say low pay, was that a result of few productions or was that a result of so many productions?
Too many productions.
There you go.
Yeah. So then I think the client station have a lot of pricing power. You know, so it's no longer about the quality. To be honest, it's more of like who could like deliver something with the cost they had in mind. Yeah.
Very interesting. Very interesting. So how are you coping if you're a filmmaker in Malaysia right now, with all the competition also from your students who's going to graduate soon?
Oh yes.
I mean, for every year there's a new batch of
Correct.
filmmakers.
Yeah.
So how do you cope with that?
But just before I elaborate how I cope, recently I was acting in my students' film. They are student short film. So they want me to act for them. So I just met them up after like one whole year because of the COVID, and they were complaining about how their seniors, this is a one batch to them, will just graduate. Now they're competing against their juniors who's still inside this university.
There you go.
Yes. So that this thing is getting worse because like most of my students, they hustles, you know, they do freelance work on their downtime, wedding photography and all that stuff. So I always thought like they could make money because it's good for students to work as they study, you know, get experience, make some money. But I didn't see that serious because the industry really is talking about the cost, who is the cheapest for certain projects. And yes, it is very hard to kind of like compete except for the few top guys who usually kind of like monopolize all the big jobs. So everyone else have to kind of like compete based on the pricing. So now it's kind of like scary because this new batch who just graduate, they are actually competing in one job which they lost to their juniors who were still like studying inside the thing for a small corporate video. So they were kind of like complaining about that. I was like, whoa, this is quite serious because I always joke like you guys are actually I'm competing with you. Even when you come out because you guys are new.
You're teaching them to take your job.
Yes, correct. Yeah. Except now their juniors is taking their job, which is like that barrier is kind of like closing faster. And I think it's because of the technology. It's getting so cheap now.
Yes.
You know?
So anybody could shoot.
Correct.
Actually.
And I think client couldn't see why they need to pay somebody so much to shoot. Whereas back in the days when there's better cam and 35 mm, those things were very expensive. You really need a professionals who know how to operate a 35 mm, to know what they're doing before they can shoot.
Especially when they meet somebody who's pricing very, very cheap without thinking of the consequence. So they
Correct.
would say somebody is cheaper than you are.
Yeah, and one last thing, I think because YouTube have already kind of like make this really strange hybrid that creep into the industry. I think YouTube is great because it's kind of like you see a lot of new content. People can publish their own films, but some in Malaysia, I think that line is blurred because I feel like in certain countries like Korea and US, there's still a distinction between YouTube online filmmakers and the real film industry.
Yeah.
So there's still a fine line, but in Malaysia,
not
I think
much
that
in
line is
Asia,
blurred.
I guess.
Correct, because it's more of like cost and the viewership. So they are looking at the viewers, the followers, the subscribers. They are paying for that.
Yes, yes. There's not much content actually. They're more thinking of how many people can like you and how many people can watch.
Yes.
But anyway,
the eyeballs that they are trying to.
Yeah, I don't want to make it really gloomy for us because I'm also thinking of the same thing in the country. Let me go into the film industry in Malaysia in general before we proceed to your film. I wanted to know what's the current conditions of the industry and what are the trends in Malaysian films these days.
Overall, I think there's more and more films being made, which sounds like good news. And because of the OTT platforms that's coming into the Asia, like Netflix, Disney Plus, and we got our own Asia platform like View TV. I think it gives local stations they have to do more.
Right. I think there are two in Malaysia that's actually exclusive for Malaysian content.
There's a couple. There's View, there's iFlix, which is now called VTV, and there's one more thing. Gosh, I just forgot. But basically, there's a couple of players here, the locals one. So what it means, they need more content. They can't be repeating the same stuff, which is good because they need to produce more. But the budget is the a thing that we have to challenge because they do have a couple of like big budget productions, those premium stuff. But the rest is mostly, like I said, if compared to 25 years ago, it's considered it's a very, very tight budget to do something of quality that could be compete with like international regional production.
I'm sure it does. Okay, so let us talk about See You Next Century. Okay. And you are inspired by La Jetée, but I'm also curious, what are the other sci-fi films that you like? I'm under the impression that you're somebody who's really a cineast.
Yes, I like most films. I don't have a specific genre that I like. As long as they are good films, I usually like them. Try not to kind of like limit myself to certain films. I always think that's quite important. But sci-fi is something that I enjoy watching it in some movies. But I've never thought of doing something myself, because when you talk about sci-fi, the first thing other than the concept is always you think about the technology. The CGIs, the set. Always needs to be futuristic, because we have this conception of like Hollywood sci-fi. It needs to be like Blade Runner.
But the Philippine sci-fi is not that. Philippine sci-fi is actually you do your own stuff. No special effects.
Yeah. But that's how I kind of like over the years I saw a couple of like sci-fi film in the US made by independent filmmaker. Right. I just forgot one. That's one that really inspired me. It's basically a time travel machine. It's shot by he's not even a filmmaker. It was his first film. He shot it in his house, very low budget on 16 mm, and that film was very good as a feature length. And it kind of like showed me, hey, sci-fi doesn't need to be like that,
True.
Yeah, so I kind of like then think of how could I make a sci-fi one day. And I think La Jetée was always in my mind. And just for your information, the photos that you see in See You Next Century, they were actually shot in 2005. Yes,
really?
Yeah,
really?
on my Nikon D50 digital camera.
You shot it before, but you just edited it now.
Yes, recently. Yeah.
I have a similar experience, which I shot when I was young and I edited somewhere when I was old. When I had time ready to edit in between.
Yeah, like when you get by the wipe, because usually once stuck there, you just that inspiration is kind of lost. Then you take a long while to kind of like get back to it. So I got the same problem. It was always there because of time, and it was not a serious project. It was an experiment. Yeah, it took me like 2018 when I finally sit down, looking in my hard drive, and I see
And
this
then, hey,
project
it's
folder. I
here.
said, oh my god, yeah, hey, it's here. I always know they here, but I didn't know like it was not finished yet.
But I think, James,
And I thought,
the good
hey,
thing about that is that you have no problems with technology because it stills. Because
yeah,
some
correct.
old projects we
Yeah.
shoot, they are not anymore compatible with the editing technology now. But that one is
Okay.
stills, so you have no problem.
Yeah. Yeah. So the lucky thing it was stills. But I think old technology, old format shouldn't be a problem. I think Premiere could take on a lot of old technology too.
Yeah, but I
So
mean the quality.
Oh, yeah, the quality, correct.
And the resolution, unless you want to make it experimental.
Oh, a video art in a museum.
Yes, true. True. So if you can't make it a film, you just make it a projection in a museum.
Ang gwapo talaga ng professor ko.
Okay, we have a live sound that it was not put off. Anyway, James, I'd like to ask you, tell us also about your other projects. You have on IMDb, you have a lot, but I'm sure not everything is listed, correct? And I'm sure you have more than that. There are a couple of films that I'm interested to ask because in Malaysia, just like in the Philippines, horror is a very popular genre. And I know you have one zombie film or you have a horror film. Is that correct? Your sound, James. You have to unmute. There you go.
All right. Yes. At present, I'm finishing a zombie film. It's in Sangpost, just finished recently. And
that's another new one.
Yeah, a new one. So this will be my second zombie movie.
Correct.
And I'm now working on a TV series for a station. It's a horror. Now the thing is like I'm trying to avoid horror and zombies and all this stuff for the longest time in my life. And I don't try other genre, but sadly, you're right. It's quite popular.
Quite popular in Asia.
Right. Yeah, in Asia, even in Malaysia, and
Japan,
it seems like,
Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines. We like horror.
I think the main thing is because it could be produced very cheaply, right? And second of all, it's easier to market. I felt more people are willing to take a risk in a horror film. They could laugh it off if they think it's bad, than compared to a melodrama or romance comedy. So I think, so I got involved in this zombie movie recently, which is not my script. It's a story of the producer. So I just went in there to direct the thing.
Yeah. And when you do all these horror films, do you still do old-fashioned special effects, or now you have technology on your back?
It depends. Usually, I will try to do a lot of practical effects first.
Yes.
I felt like it's a cost reason. It's always a cost reason for the producers. Every shot with effects is a cost. So usually they know some shots they will need special effects. Personally, I think I prefer to do it practically on set first. If it's really costly or hard to perform, then we'll go to CGI.
By default,
So you mean you do
click on
test
the drop
shoots?
down under date format.
Not real test shoots. I kind of look at the script, went to location, talked to my art directors, my DP. We don't really do much test shoot in Malaysia because of the costing. It's not
same here. Same here. Unless you have money to do that,
correct,
because
So our pre-pro is usually a lot of meetings, reference.
And select the date
talk how
format
to
you would like
execute that.
displayed on your account.
Yeah, so we plan it in a meeting. Like, could we
Changing the
pull this
date
off?
format
Like,
displayed for you
put
does not
wires here
change the
and some
date
lamps
format
here. If they
displayed
say
for any other
it's
user
hard,
in your plane.
then immediately we need to kind of like change to CGI. But mostly, I use CGI these days to like clean up the scenes and to scene replacement, like put buildings in place where they don't have buildings. And for explosion, blood, and all these minor things. So no heavy stuff like 3D, because those are stuff that they try to avoid. Yeah.
You mean you're just adding to the scenes because the blood that's coming out
correct.
sometimes it's not enough.
Yeah.
You know,
and
so
take
just
out
have to
stuff
really splurt. Yeah.
and take out stuff that we don't want in the scene, because sometimes the location they got a phone
The
booth.
wires. Yeah.
Yeah, and we think it's distracting. We take out those stuff. So I use them very sparingly, just to tweak so it kind of like I can control the visual much more.
Interesting. Very interesting. I want to go back to See You Next Century because of all the films that you did, this one it's not only in stills but it's also in black and white. Why did you decide so?
I think majority from La Jetée, the black and white thing.
Yeah.
The still was shot in color because digital camera. But eventually I thought want to try black and white and see how it looks like first, because digital color to black and white is quite tricky last time. Yeah, it always turned out very strange. So this one actually I do a lot of like process in Photoshop. You know, I add in grains, make it look a bit more old school.
You are OC. In the Philippines, we call that OC, obsessive compulsive. You are so detailed.
Okay. All right. In fact, the truth is I'm not that detailed.
Really?
I kind of like make sure that it passes off. You know, I'm not looking into like superly into resolution, into the exposure, like stuff. In fact, that's how I kind of like I could go into like when I make commercials like all these zombie films, right? It's impossible to become superly detailed in all the shots. You were just trying to kill yourself in a low budget version. So it's always about some you can cheat because it's low budget. You can cheat because of how you know it's really fast. Then you cheat it, all right? Unless somebody bought the DVD or Blu-ray and then they pause it and say there's something wrong with this shot. So it's more about knowing when which shot is important, so I could really be OC about it. And the rest I need to know that they are just there to kind of like form a story and an image. Then it'll pass by. You know, nobody's gonna stop it in the cinema and look at the shot. Except people like you who teach film, right? Who will stop
or maybe
say,
Philip.
You know what's the problem with this shot? That's the problem. So I think I'm not such a perfectionist. In fact, I'm quite a very chill out filmmaker. Laid back, because I feel like filmmaking is always about lying to your audience. So it doesn't need to have a perfect shot all the time, because we can never get a perfect film all the time, no matter what budget you're working in.
But there's no such thing as a perfect film anyway.
Yeah, so I will kind of like always, as a director, I will see which are the scenes that I need it to be perfect. Yeah, then I kind of like make sure I'll focus on those stuff, and the rest I could kind of like, to be honest, yes, it's possible. I think it's possible. It tells something, it's not as bad, then I'll let it pass. Because of time and money and costing. Even on my own films, I learned to do that. Because when I started, I think like most young filmmakers, your students, right? To be honest, I've been through that pace of trying to look for perfection. And it's quite silly thinking back.
That's probably when we were young.
Yes. which now we're trying to share with all these young filmmakers.
But now, it's okay. You can.
Correct. They have to go through that pace.
Yeah. Let the film critics take care of that.
Yeah. You're right. Let the film critics take care of it. They don't care how perfect the shot, right? So over the years, I think like I learned to chill out, to understand film is not about perfection. It's about telling the story with what you got. And I think because I started out doing a lot of independent films, short films on my own, so I got used to the idea of like we should make a film based on what we have, the resource. You know, if you have $50, I'm sorry that you have to make something out with $50, because I think that is what a filmmaker should do. It's about being creative with what you've got. But I felt like the new generation of filmmakers in Malaysia, they make one short film. The next thing is like they want to do a multi-million feature film. It's crazy. Yeah, I think a lot of investors think these kids are all over ambitious.
But I think that there's a misconception that short films is a stepping stone to feature films. That is quite wrong. Short films are it's a way to tell your story in a short way, but not necessarily a stepping stone.
Yes.
And it does not diminish the filmmaker if you are a short filmmaker compared to a full-length filmmaker.
But in Malaysia, it's a bit different. Short film, I always think of like student films. It's not
really.
It's not. Yes, it's not very. How to say? It's not being given the importance as a filmmaking part of the industry. Hence, in fact, it's not really. Sometimes I think, how can you evaluate a filmmaker by one short film over 3 years period, right? I understand why last time during our generation, a filmmaker only have one short film per year because they were shot on 16 and it's very expensive.
It was
right?
expensive during
Yes.
these days. Yes.
So those days you can see the production is very slow. You know, one filmmaker
Yes.
have one short film for 2 years before he had to do another short films. But this day, I think it's not a reason you can't operate like that because of
Yes,
digital,
true.
the mobile phone. I think young filmmakers and students need to produce at least like 3 to 5 short films per year.
Yes.
That's
true.
what I always think.
Yeah.
There's no reason why you take 1 year to make one short films because it's so cheap, so accessible. You got friends, right?
Yes.
You
have
can,
friends. Always the
yeah,
friends are there.
you
yeah.
can if you're good in hustling, you can get them all to work for free. If not, you spend a little money. But I felt like it's a good time to become a filmmaker because now you can keep on experimenting and you can keep failing, you know. Whereas last time it's so precious because it's so expensive. I need to make sure that I'm really prepared before
That's
I shoot a
true.
film, right?
And also in the previous times, there's always stories that the old directors would always shout at, and they're being grouchy about it because of the film medium. Because
Stress.
if they spoil the film,
Yeah.
more takes would mean more expensive. But
Yeah.
these days, if you're having attitude, it's just you. It's not
Yeah.
really the technology.
Correct. Yeah. But last time I think it used to be the producers.
Yes, always the producer. Unless the producer is me, I'm not like that.
Oh, because they're keeping, they're making sure they have they shoot within that kind of films, number kind of films.
Yeah.
So they are the one who's freaking out, who's like, you know.
Especially the producers for TV.
Oh, okay.
Right, they freak out a lot
Oh, okay.
because they are under pressure for a budget.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. But I
Yeah.
think it's not worse these days because everything is on video. But on film, oh man, it's a different story.
Oh, but sometimes they just like to have attitude, which I
okay.
don't understand. But
All right.
let's give it to them. I am very interested to know because you've mentioned about short films, and you're one of those few who juggle short films in full length and back to short films in full length. That is quite rare for a director because most director who moves on to full length would do full length, and nobody would go back to short films unless you're passionate about making films. Like perhaps I can mention many filmmakers, but in Asia, not quite like that.
Yeah. In Malaysia especially. So to be honest, I can claim I'm the only few like veteran old filmmaker who still make short films. Most doesn't make short films.
Quite agree with that. Yes.
Yeah. For me, like I said, I felt first of all I really love the craft, and second of all, I think short film is good for practice and experiment.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to practice and experiment in a commercial film with an image in my back. I don't want to. Yeah, I kind of make it clear. So I on set, if I want to do something, I need to know what I do. So I use my short film as a platform to explore things I've not explored before, experiment a story, or do something that I wouldn't do in the industry like TV series, commercials, right? That I wouldn't get a chance to do. For me, it's the best learning process because I don't think filmmakers should stop learning.
Yes.
Not just on the technical side with the latest technology, but also the craft. I know some filmmakers they specialize in certain genre like horror or action,
Right.
And if they are clear that's what they want, I think it's okay. But for me, I'm kind of restless. That's why I do.
You have a very
stuff.
creative and imaginative mind. Those who are restless, they say.
Yes, and I'm always trying to just try, learn, test, and then when it comes out a short film, if it doesn't work, it looks so bad, right? Thank God it was a short film. Yeah.
So simply put, what you're trying to say is that instead of you talking about the short film, you do it because a lot of people say, I have this plan, I want to shoot. I have this grand plan. It's all in my mind, but nobody's doing it. But the experimentation goes with the actual production of the short film.
Yeah. But you know what? Those guys who talk about films, they tend to be doing in the mid-90s. The older filmmakers, I met a lot of them because of the cost of making a film. So we spend a lot of time talking about making a short films.
Yeah, I tend to avoid those who just talk.
Yeah.
We want product.
Yes. Yeah. So I think young people these days shouldn't talk so much. They should go straight into it.
True.
And just shoot the thing. In fact, the thing is that I forgot some of the names of these Filipinos filmmakers, which I met in person in the early 2000s. I think Philip Chia might know still some of them. They really went out there and shoot with no, like, like, they don't give a shit like if it's a
Yeah,
proper
we
production.
have a lot of those.
Yeah, and they have
Yeah.
a mini DV camera and they shot, and that was actually and Indonesia too back in those days was
Yeah, true.
some of the things that actually inspired me more.
Mm.
At first, in 2000, when we were using mini DV because we have no choice.
Mini DV, I
Yes,
remember that. Yes.
Because they're the only one we can afford, but it's not cheap back in those days, right?
Yes.
I would
yeah.
prefer to have like a film or HD, right?
Yeah.
But after watching those stuff in festivals, especially from the Philippines, right,
Mm.
I seriously learned to appreciate the mini DV. And today I like the handphone. Kind of like see like it's a tool to help me to record the thing.
Yeah.
Definitely it won't be good compared to a cinema lens and other stuff.
Yeah.
But if that's what you got, try to make a story out of that. And I've seen really good stuff back in those days that I shot on mini DV, handheld,
quite
low
agree.
budget, and I'm like, wow, this
But
guy.
the idea is wonderful. So the stories are
Yeah.
wonderful.
Yeah.
So it's really not about the
tool.
medium, the tool,
Yes.
but it's really about the story and how it impacts the audience that you're
Yes.
targeting.
And how the filmmaker used the tool. I think that was the thing that I kind of like noticed, and I thought that was the most important thing. You don't let the tool dictate how you make a film. You should be able to use whatever tool you have to shoot a film. I think artists is like that. I mean, maybe if you give them color pencils, crayons, I mean, they should be able to do something with it.
Yes.
It shouldn't be.
Yes.
I always
You don't
miss-
have to wait for an
Yeah.
oil.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think from that, it kind of like give me that concept. No, filmmakers should be able to, unless the whole world suddenly the technology just goes down. There's no more electricity. Then we'll start to draw.
True.
Go back to comics.
You're going back to comic, which
Yeah.
is another expensive hobby, by the way.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, comics is expensive.
You mean collecting or drawing?
collecting. The drawing is cheap. I can
drawing
draw,
is
but
cheap, yes.
but yeah.
Collecting is expensive. That's
Yeah,
why
I stopped already. We are accepting questions from our audience. So if Denise will take charge of that, and if we have questions from them, you just put it on our chat box, or you can put it on our Facebook page and see. Denise will have to check those. No, Denise, if you're still with us, please take care so that we could accommodate questions from our audience. James, I wanted to ask about you being one of the first to go digital in Southeast Asia. Tell us the journey and the feats, all the accomplishments that you've made during those times that when people were still crossing over from film medium to the digital medium.
I think one of the things that I shared, I just mentioned previously about how I see how other filmmakers use it in the region that made me feel like mini DV is not so inferior.
Yes.
But the thing other than the fact that the resolution and everything couldn't even beat beta at those days, it always become challenging for me to get the type of visual we saw in films, like in feature films. I think we all know the trick was most of the camera back in those days, they can't change lens. Yes, to get that shot, the depth, so that was something that.
So before, if you really want a shot, you really have to go near.
Yes.
if the zoom cannot function that, if you want an eye, you have to go near.
Correct. And the zoom lens is always flat. That's the biggest problem that I thought it hindered my production, which eventually I got rid of that too. So
and the stabilization is really horrible. So if I was too fat then, if you're very, very fat, the whole camera would shake to death together with your stomach.
Yeah, so we have to kind of like change the way we shoot it to accommodate the two sometimes, depending on what's the limit of the camera. But eventually, I think that was the only choice we had. That means I have no other way to make my films except for using mini DV. I've made some films using VHS Super V.
Yeah.
This is before.
Of course, I remember Super VHS.
Yeah, and that was expensive. I made one or two short films. Yeah.
But I like the idea of that small. There's SVHS, that's small, and then you have to put it in an adapter.
Oh, okay.
The kids cannot anymore relate to that, but that sounds and looks wonderful.
Okay. So I haven't even used that, but I used the straight-on VHS for sound recorder because back then the only people who can afford this VHS is people who was involved in wedding photography. So it was a big business back in those days, and they could afford that. So my friend was in that business.
It's always them who gets the money, so they can afford it. Yeah.
Correct. So I borrow it and shoot some of my earlier short films before transition to Handycam, and then finally to Mini DV. We shot to be honest, it's better than VHS and Betacam in terms of cost and quality, right?
Yes, true.
So we gotta stuck with that. But if you ask me, I wish DSLR was back in those days, man. My film will look
Same.
So we had that regret.
Yeah, the scientists were not listening to us yet.
Correct. Yeah.
So now they understand. Okay, so there's not supposed to. We have to have stabilization. We have to have good lenses.
Correct. Yeah. So I think that's my biggest wow, man. I wish I was I'm still young.
Yeah, I think when we were born, these times we'll have more, because one of my I wasn't able to shoot a lot is because I can't afford the camera before.
Yeah.
Really can't afford. I got my camera at 38.
Whoa, okay.
When I was already a professional. So when I was starting shooting as a professional, some of the cameras I have to rent.
Okay. But I have been renting the camera most of the time. Actually, in fact, I own very little camera.
I only have 2.
Okay.
Because I keep on selling, because I cannot collect a lot.
Yeah.
I cannot afford, and I don't think the technology would, after 5 years, it's nothing.
Yeah. So I stopped worrying about camera like a couple of years back.
Yeah.
Because the camera's coming up so fast, faster than handphone.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
True.
So I thought like if my advice is if for anybody who want to invest in equipment, they should invest in lens.
Agree.
Yeah, the lens will never grow out of fashion, right? Even old lens still work today. But a camera, I think, for people, I would say is the least important tool now that you own, because you can rent very cheaply these days. Everybody got one camera.
True.
Yeah, it's quite scary. Even like my neighbor have a better camera than me.
Yeah. I quite agree. Some of my students have better camera than me.
Yeah.
I wanted to know, James, when you start stories, how does it enter your mind? Okay, that I have so many ideas, but when do you say, okay, then I'll do this? What kind of projects really, really interest you?
Oh, it really depends on the story and at the period what's interests me. So let's not talk about commercial projects, because commercial projects there's always a requirement. Then I work towards the project and I come up with an idea for them. But basically, it really depends on what I have come in contact recently. So I still watch a lot of movies, and I watch a lot of short films. Lesser these days. I love short films on YouTube, Vimeo. That's this. Now they have a lot of short film platforms. So I kind of try to catch up once in a while to see what's happening. And news is the best way to get inspiration. I think I'm not sure if young people read news these days, but all I know, my students, they rarely read news.
I'm guilty of not reading news because of politics in the country.
Okay, but other politics, toxic. Yeah, but there's also news about normal days people. So locally, regionally. In fact, some of my short films that I've done, right, the story was inspired by news in Hong Kong. Then I kind of create based on that. So I think for me, it's about what I've come in contact during that period. It could come from a piece of short film I watched that inspired me. Hey, I want to do something like that. Or it could be a news. It could be a movie I watched. It could be a piece of music I listened to and it inspired me visually. Yeah, because this inspiration thing comes from a lot of different forms. So in a way, whenever I get a question like, where do I get my inspiration and idea? I will always say from all this medium. It could be even when I'm cycling, that thing would come out. So I don't focusly say I need to read to get my ideas, or I need to just watch movies to get the ideas. I try to consume stuff from different medium. I still read comics. I still love manga. It's rare these days. I used to like American comics, but now I'm more into manga and anime. I'm not sure how many directors actually still watch anime. So I'm still
sometimes.
You do sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think for me, I'm kind of and I love video games, so I play video games too.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well,
so
that one I didn't. That's the only medium I don't enter into because I'm afraid I cannot work anymore.
Oh yes.
I get easily drawn towards something.
It is. But as I grow older, I become much more disciplined. So I set myself 1-2 hours, but I need to just play 1-2 hours and then I get out. I got friends online, right? Yes. So in a way, I think I consume a lot of stuff from different medium which I enjoy, and sometimes somehow even when I'm playing games, right, ideas pop up. So yeah.
I have here a question, but before that, I'm going to ask, do you have any, this is a common question, but do you have any interesting films that you have seen lately, or films that you really like that,
lately
keep on?
Oh, that's quite a number.
I know. There's a lot.
Yeah.
And I didn't send you the question in advance. So.
Yeah, I'm kind of, gosh, yes, I watched quite a number. What was that I watched? Gosh.
See,
Maybe-
this is the problem, because we really have difficulty
Mm.
listing down our best. If
Yeah.
this question comes up, even
Yeah.
me,
Yeah.
unless you have to give to me in advance and I have to list down.
Yeah,
Because there's
correct.
a lot.
There's
There's
a lot.
really a lot.
But actually, it's now more than last time. Last time when there's no internet, no Netflix,
Mm,
I still could
mm.
remember choose a few films I watched in festival. Hey, I like this, but now because there's so many and I'm getting
Yeah.
a bit old, right? Sometimes I forgot. I recently watched some really good films on Netflix. Really good. Some foreign films too. But I really need to look at my watch list. What the hell did I watch? Yeah.
But have you watched any of our films in the Philippines?
No, not of
Not a
recently.
lot.
Yeah, not a
Because
lot.
it doesn't really arrive in
Correct,
your shores.
Correct. And what I've got in Netflix is usually the horror. They have horror from Philippines, Thailand,
Yeah,
Indonesia, and
Yeah.
they kind of quite corny. Like you can tell it's low budget and stuff. So it's very generic. Yeah.
Because the horror seems to be fun. When we do horror in the country, I mean, some directors would do horror with friends as characters.
Friends.
We call it barkada, friends,
Oh.
young friends. And then it's always fun for them because it's always chasing. So chase is more fun if there are 5 people, shouting,
Okay.
the young people running.
Running.
So it's really, it's really about that. It's the fun of watching it with friends and seeing characters and friends.
Okay.
We have here a question, James, from
Alright.
a private question thrown to me on Facebook. Let me open it. When you shot, this was answered actually, but anyway, I'm going to read. When you shot See You Next Century, you mean, wait, I have to compose the question. You shot this prior and you edited it late. Were there differences in the story when the first time you conceptualized it and the years after when you edited it?
Yes, there's a big difference. It was not so straightforward anymore. And the voiceover narration was written now after the edit was done. But I know it needs to have a narration to drive the short film. It was always to edit it first, have a rough cut, and then get a narration to write, to develop the script. But because it was stopped, so I think that changes a lot. Originally, I think I was trying to narrate it with a guy from the scientist's point of view. But now somehow it becomes the novelist, the woman points of view.
Yes.
So over the years, yes, it does change. I look at it very differently. And one of the reasons I remember why it got stuck for so long at that time when I was still young was because I was waiting for music from my friend. And like most musicians, they are very busy, right?
Yes.
I'm not trying to like
No,
like
but that's
trash-
true. I have
Yeah.
a film that's still pending because of the musician. It's 1 year already.
Oh my god! So we are not trying to trash musician, but the thing is like
No, we are
yeah,
not.
but the thing is like I think musician when they work, if it's not a commercial, right? Sometimes they take very long time, and
Yeah.
either they forgot or they got into some other things else, And as friend, I kind of like very chill, never kind of like follow up. So then it kind of like I was trying to edit based on music. So when I started back in this, I tried to edit based on the visual. So the music that you hear in this short film is all from library.
That is
online.
quite different now. Yes, I
Yes,
understand.
so it's not originally composed. So I just kind of forced myself to work with the visual first. Then I think about the music and the narration later. So that's the
Whereas
difference.
originally you had music in mind.
Yes, I want the music to come first so I can narrate the pictures, edit it based on the music.
Maybe the music will arrive next century. Who knows?
Yes, I'll have a special version.
I have here a comment from Mr. Jesse Perlas, but this is not really for you, but he wants to watch all the 3 films. It seems that the time is set on Eastern time, so films on schedule today are not yet available now in their time. Yes, they are not yet available there. You have to wait for tomorrow at 7 a.m. You are correct. So that's so if you want to watch the films of James, the 2 James, James Lee, James Fajardo, and Justin Ogapo, the 3 films, and all the other films, you have to wait for a day later if you are in Europe, if you're in America. So of course we use the Southeast Asian time. Yeah, because it would be impossible for us to use your time and our time, and that would mix us, and then we become See You in Century Part Two.
A bit time
We have here
travel
a
issue.
question, James, from John Knoxville. How would you know? But actually, you answered this in a way, but still, I'm going to ask
Okay.
this. How would you know if your story is good enough to be told?
Oh, to be honest, I don't know. That's why I make the film.
Yeah, exactly. How
there's
would
a
you
lot-
know, right?
Yeah. I always think the best way to know whether it works is the finished film. Hence,
Yeah.
I use short film as my testing ground, and I still make short films when I have time and stuff. Because even when I'm making a feature film, right, with all this money involved, right, with a script and a professional crew, you don't know. You're just doing this thing. I think that the thing with film, what makes it so challenging is like we always thought we know, but a lot of time we
Yeah.
don't, because it's a very organic process. You're working with like dozens of people who come from different background, you know.
Yeah,
And,
but I tell them if I don't know, because really, I can't know everything.
yeah.
So I sometimes I tell, can you tell me how this is done?
I only know that first of all, I know I'm interested in the story. I'm trying to kind of tell it as good as possible. But once whether it's work or not, especially if comedy or horror, it needs to be. I can only get say it work when it's tested with an audience, because to be self, you can always say my film will work very easily. Everybody can say that, especially with like certain films, and then the thing you can say, oh, just because the audience doesn't understand that, that's not my fault. I think,
but I don't think that way. Sometimes
Yes,
I'm too harsh
correct.
to myself, because I cannot really say that it's the fault
Yeah,
of other people.
yes, it's not the fault of the
Yeah,
audience, because
sometimes you have to start with us.
yeah, start with us. So I think to be good or not, I always let the finished product to be the judge. But the thing is, like during editing and sound post, right, you can tell whether it's good or not based on.
I wanted to say there are really times, James,
Yep.
that you inside you'd feel this is nice, this is good. I mean, there.
Yeah.
You know that okay, this one is I like this. you
Yes.
know, our film, we would know, and sometimes we would also know, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what I mean is like sometimes I know based on the editors and the sound designer and the musicians response. Not my response, I see how they cut the film or how they design the sound. Then I can kind of tell these guys think this film got potential. That's why they're doing something special. You can tell it's troubling when they can't figure out what to do with the film, and all the shit. All right, that's not
when your
trouble.
editor is
correct.
is
It's
getting
like-
sick already.
Or like he or she knows like, oh shit, this scene's hard to work now. They try, then that's problematic. Most probably it won't work as you intended. So I think the next best judge is doing post when you're working with editors and musician. You can see how if they like the film or they can see these things like because I can tell these days based on experience, there's a lot of difference when they see something good and they see something that's boring and tacky, right? Their mood is different. So I use that as a judging point to see, oh, all right, they really think they are interested in doing the film. So I know, okay, it might work to a certain degree, but eventually the finished product, I think could tell. So I think, to know whether it's work or not, you just have to shoot it, and short film is the best, most economic way to do it. Yeah.
Who are the directors who influenced you?
All right. I have a few. They're kind of like Wong Kar-wai, Takeshi Kitano.
Who has a new 4K restoration of his film. In the Mood for Love was just restored and made into 4K. Yeah.
Oh, okay. And then I like the Taiwanese directors like Ho Xiao Sen, Chai Ming Liang, Edward Young, and I love the earlier batch of Korean directors like Park Chang Wook and all that stuff, and some American directors, Jim Jarmusch, David Lynch.
So was a zombie film, by the way, in Netflix. Jim
Oh
Jarmusch.
yeah, that's the one that I watched recently.
Yes.
I
It was
love
fun,
it.
though.
Yeah, it was fun. But the review was so horrible.
Yeah.
Can we
But it's
talk about other
okay.
people's film here?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah,
it's
but I think the new generation doesn't know him, so it looks like a bad film.
yeah,
Because
but
they expect a zombie film with violence and the pacing, and I think he was misunderstood. But I think but it was I love it. It was funny.
It was
hilarious.
funny, it's quite a satire, I guess.
Yeah.
In a way.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think people are expecting to have a formula zombie. That was not
correct.
a formula
Yeah.
zombie.
But I guess the reviews come from normal audience who is on Netflix expecting a zombie movies.
Yes.
Yeah.
Who doesn't know Jim?
Yes, correct. Who doesn't know the style of the filmmaker, which I think is quite troubling when you put this type of film together and then I think it's kind of hard these days when there's less and less discussion interest about the filmmaker's work. Unlike in my time, we are really interested in film directors.
Yes.
That we read about them, we read reviews.
I still do. I encourage my students to do so. because knowing the directors would mean that you are trying to look for the kind of quality that you are expecting.
Yeah.
So if you know that a good director came up with 5 good films, most probably the next work you have to look forward to.
Yeah.
And you cannot just say because this is a franchise you like the film. You really have to look at who's directing it because the franchise could change.
Yep.
I'll give a good example, like Conjuring, for example. This is quite popular, so I'll use that.
Yeah.
And you have James Wan doing the first 2, but the recent other part of the universe is not anymore by him. So there is really a change in the quality and tone of the film.
Yes. They are just milking the franchise.
Yes,
spin-off.
Exactly. When the franchise comes in, there everybody, and of course, people will be expecting because Chloe Zhao has just won an Oscar, and the next film is Eternals, which is a part of the Marvel universe. Yeah. So it's interesting to see how would audiences react to how she does the film. But they have to remember she's not bringing anymore Chloe the person, but she has also to adapt to the Marvel Disney universe system.
Yes, correct. Yes. Yeah, their template, their style of working, which is actually something I find interesting because I think recently the DC are doing quite well. I mean, we are cutting off a bit because I think they are letting the directors decide how the film should look.
True.
Yeah, especially Joker.
Because they're not following some sort of
a template.
Like Joker, Batman of Matt Reeves, and 4 others are not following the DC timeline.
Yeah, but so the stylistically is very based on the directors. The directors have a lot of control in how it looks and how it works. Whereas I think that makes, for me, recently I think DC's films are much more interesting to watch. Marvel used to be very entertaining, but it's becoming more like a template because they need to make sure everything looks the same. You're right. Like I can't see how she's going to bring something interesting into something that's really fixed unless they give her the freedom to shoot it like how she should Nomadland, right? That would be interesting to see.
That would be interesting to see, but not a lot of people would watch.
Hard to say, because I think
in the mind of the producer, that's what they think.
Yeah, because I think this is one thing I feel like the commercial cinemas need to take the risk to introduce new film techniques and new visuals. And I think Joker did it very well in how they. I mean, I love the film. I watched a lot of the interview with the DP.
Yes.
Yeah, so there's a real filmmaking process in that film compared to a Marvel, which I think is much more like
I quite agree. Especially also the amount of freedom they gave to the actor.
Yes. Yeah.
Because the freedom given to Joaquin Phoenix was really a lot. I mean, he did a lot of takes.
Yes.
And all the actors were playing along. And we have Robert De Niro, who's a veteran, playing along with him, doesn't really mind. So he's not insecure. I like that attitude also.
Yeah. And then you see it's a very original film, compared to recent time of superhero films, which I think that's how I feel like Marvel should kind of let their directors. In fact, they did one with Hugh Jackman X-Men. What's it called?
Logan was very, very interesting, and I think the best of their X-Men and Wolverine series.
They let the director and Hugh Jackman do what they want, which they kill him off.
And James Mangold is not even a young director.
Oh yeah,
I mean, he's a veteran, and look what he did.
Yes, so I think that matters because I thought that was one of the best that I liked. It was a whole different style. It's like a western, and it's very emotional, gripping. It have all the stuff that seems like it's less cartoonish. I felt.
Yes, true. Because a lot of our cartoonish, which is sometimes good, but not all times work. So it probably will work for Guardians, but not will work for everything.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. There's a question here given to me on Facebook. Why are you secretly giving all these questions to me? Why don't you just post it in public? Yes. Among your films, because he has not seen any except for See You Next Century, which he just watched a while ago. What are your favorite among your films?
All right. I get to ask this a lot. I don't have a favorite. They could be my favorite when it's finished.
Yeah.
I don't know about other filmmakers, but I tend to watch my film a lot when they're
Yes.
finished. Right, I can watch it back again. This is like after edit is done, I watch it again, I watch it again, I watch it again, and I kind of like it. Then I start to hate it. Then I see, oh shit, there's a lot of flaw, but I can't do much because it's already done. Now the only different thing
relate, yes.
the only thing that I don't agree with like filmmakers like Wong Kar-wai, because I heard he re-edit a lot. So that's
Yeah.
something that I don't think as a filmmaker.
I have to stop at some point.
Yes, we have to stop because
Yes.
the painting needs to stop and let the paint dry. You
Yeah.
can't go and I mean, literally, you can add a paint you don't like to the art gallery. I need to add another. You can
That's
do that.
true.
Yeah,
That's
but
true.
as
We cannot
as a,
forever edit
correct,
and change.
as a work, it needs to stop, and then you need to deal with it. Like, all right. So for me, usually once it's passed, I wouldn't say I don't have a favorite work. I try not to say, oh, this is my favorite work. Then I think I'm still stuck in that.
But that's a favorite question of everybody always being
Yeah.
asked to filmmakers. No,
Yeah.
But I also cannot fault people because I think they want to know what you like because they would also try to check it out because you
okay.
have a lot.
But if other films of other filmmakers I could recommend, right, I could talk about it. But for myself, it's hard for me to say it's favorite. That's
Yeah.
because I want you to watch all of it on your own.
Yeah, true. So where can we watch your films? That's our next question. After this festival, where can we watch some of your films?
In fact, I have a YouTube channel on YouTube. It's
because
called,
there's a lot of James Lee. You have to lead us.
Yeah, so you can just go to YouTube, search James Lee's films or James Lee filmmaker, and you'll find a channel with a lot of short films, which is directed by me. That's my channel.
So my spiritual advisor gave me that link. And I'm going to have a James Lee festival next week. I have scheduled it on a Wednesday next week. Yeah. I usually schedule my film watching. I'm so excited because it's all free. It's in YouTube.
Yeah, it's
so
on YouTube.
Everybody who's listening right now, you can actually watch that in our YouTube. Oh, we are geeking, James. We are geeks and we are geeking now. And the time is telling me that I have to stop, just like our editing. It has been fun, and I really hope to talk to you in person soon, probably in one of the festivals in Asia. And I really have to be grateful to Philip for connecting you with us, because finally I was able to talk to you, and we were able to connect with you and see your films.
Okay, thank you. Same here.
Thank you. So I'm going to give you the floor, invite our audience probably, and tell us about some other projects that you'd like us to know.
Oh, me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I don't have new short films at this moment this year because of timing and this whole COVID thing. But I hope you guys could go to my YouTube channel and check out my films and some of my earlier independent feature-length films. They are all uploaded there. Those that went to festivals. So I kind of upload most of my feature films, those independent low-budget films onto the channel. And yeah, I hope those films will inspire you guys. I assume most of you are filmmakers and students, right?
Yeah, we have filmmakers in Zoom. Some of the filmmakers selected in our festival are here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think like YouTube channel is a really good. I really like this whole internet YouTube thing, right? This is why I think another reason why I kept making films, because at least there's a place for me to publish it. So I understand why last time we made one short films and then we make sure the short film need to go to a festival in 1 or 2 years before we make a second one. You're trying to get more people to watch it. But I think now with a YouTube channel, you can do festivals and all that stuff. It's a good time for people to make films and put it up online and see, and share it with people. I think at first it's quite intimidating because we are always dealing with those YouTubers, right? They have, yes, they are definitely there. They get all the audience. But I think we need to separate ourselves as we are different filmmakers. We are using the platform to put our work. No doubt we will never get those views. So forget about that. It's about putting your work, having a place like your little art gallery.
Yeah, you have a little art gallery.
Correct.
It's correct. It's how to put it actually.
Yeah.
Thank you, Director
Okay, welcome.
James Lee, everyone. And of course, the film is See You Next Century. It's from Malaysia because, of course, he's a Malaysian filmmaker. And of course, after this, I'm going to order laksa, which is my favorite,
Oh, okay.
favorite food. Thank God we have lots already here in
All
the
right.
in the country. It used to be rare,
All right.
but now we have a lot. So, but the best is I cannot mention because I cannot advertise. But there are two best laksa, and well, I can say Limapulo is already here. So we already have two branches.
Okay. 50. All right.
Yeah, we have here. So anyway, James, thank you very much.
Okay.
The
Welcome.
film will screen 7 days from now, and after 7 days, it's gone. So you better check it out with your friends. The three films opening sa Punta Sambalangao, See You Next Century, and Ang Lalaking May Regla sa Gitna ng Dagat. And of course, tomorrow, which is Friday, we have other films also. Adlaw nga Dam Uwak. We have Kuha, and we
Alam
have
ni?
Huling Hapunan.
Alam na niya.
Um,
Sino po?
Pa-unmute muna.
Biglang
Oh, okay. So
Okay.
anyway, that's called advertisement, James. Thank you very much,
All right.
everybody. So on behalf of Bakunawa Cinema of the Young, or Young Cinema 7th edition, our festival director, Ms. Tanya Lopez, and yours truly, Dr. Adrian Torres, with our director for programming and outreach, and our spiritual advisor, Philip Chea. Thank you, James Lee.
All right.
Maraming
Welcome.
salamat sa lahat. Thank you very much for watching today. I'm sorry we're geeks, but I hope the geeks and the cineasts enjoyed, and to the young people who wasn't able to catch up, you can always review and check out what we were talking about, because some of the things that we were talking about are very, very interesting, and I hope this will also interest you. So thank you very much, and marami pong salamat.
Right.
Thank you, James.
Right.